na I think ni hiyo tu nimesema. Ukiniwekea
Asante.
hapa hivi utapata zingine.
Asante sana Deno. Nashukuru sana. Thank you for joining. Are you still in China?
Niko China mazee, na hapa ni 3 sasa hivi 3:30 na bado silali. Hii space hii ni hadi kesho.
Asante. Now let me go to Willis.
Na in fact hata niongeze vile niko hapa, history ya my youth imeniudi. As in, ukiona the way the youth are supported here by Gava, as in Gava inafanya everything. I will tell you for free, for a fact, as in hii job ya influencer nafanya, I've been more than blessed enough, nimemanage kutoka hiyo cocoon ya local kufanya, of which bado nafanya, but I've been able to work with lots of embassies na governments, Turkey, Italy, nini Thailand. Kitu kama kupush tu chakula, kitu kama pad thai. The reason why is the most exported food in the world. The reason why Thai restaurants are the most the exported restaurants in the world, I think over 30,000 in the world, it's because the government ili push it. Government ilikuwa inapatia hadi incentives. Hapa China unakuja hapa hivi wameunda tu mpaka cities tu ziko empty, za kama unataka kushoot movie, wewe unaenda unachukua license au lipi, unaenda unachapa wera yako, unarudi. As in Gava inadu vitu mingi sana. Hata kuna vitu zingine za upuzi kwanza nimeona mpaka inaniuliza swali mpaka sasa nashangaa sasa, mbona unajua nimeenda public, nimekaa fala sana. Nimeuliza jamaa hapo hivi kwa town, sasa tuko hapa Sichuan Chengdu. Akaniambia public toilet tuko huko hivyo. Sasa mimi niko na card. Nikamuuliza sina do ya kulipa, naweza swipe na vile visa hapa inasumbua kwa duka zingine. Mimi nashangaa watu wanacheka nini? Kumbe hata public toilet ni bure. Nashangaa kwani sisi tunabebwa ufala aje? Anyway, hata ni maji.
All right, asante sana. Thank you very much Deno, nimeshukuru sana. Let me invite Willis.
Thank you very much, Americ.
Karibu sana.
Willis Otieno here.
Yes.
Pikie Ponkie.
Karibu.
The first thing I want to point out is that it's good that you start this. We continue with this conversation, because what you are doing is you are now giving citizens a platform where they are going to be discussing their issues beyond the political class. And the challenge we have in this country is that our politicians have always thought that they are actually lords over us. They are not. They are actually our workers. When you talk about the money that they spend, the lagis that you see them flashing around, that is money that's collected from the border guys, collected from you when you go and buy sweets, you go and buy anything you buy. It is your money that is collected to a common pool, and then they don't use it to your benefit. And it is important that we note that when we breached parliament last week, the Kenyan people took sovereignty into their hands. What the political establishment is trying to do is to take it away, to take it back from you. And they are going to do everything possible to try to get that power back from you. It is our responsibility not to hand it over back to them until the day we'll go to a ballot and we elect a group that we believe will recognize that the people are superior even to the constitution. Right now, the president thinks that he is the most superior being in this country. He is not. He is merely a servant of the people of Kenya. William Ruto will come and go. In fact, the question we should be having at this point in terms of William Ruto, is he going before 2027 or is going in 2027? Going, he will go. That we've passed. What we must engender in our governance is that going forward, you must understand what we call the People's Charter. And that People's Charter, I normally summarize it to be one thing. It is about the welfare of the people and giving human beings, the people of Kenya, dignity in whatever you are doing. So anything that anybody does that does not give dignity to the individual, you must take it away. I've had the conversation about some within the space who will betray the movement. Whenever I talk to the politicians who are in the 1980s and the 90s struggle, they will tell you that they were betrayed by the most unlikely quarters, people whom they didn't even expect to betray them. Allow me just to give an example, for example, of Raila Odinga, who once mentioned one of the people who, when he sent an emissary to pass a message that he was in detention, that emissary, when he reached to a close relative, The close relative told the emissary, never come back to me with a message from Raila Odinga. And that is his close relative. He disowned him because he feared for himself. There are others who also decided to sell their fellow detainees just because you are offered 10,000 Kenya shillings, 100,000 Kenya shillings. So we will expect also in this particular quest, there are so many people in this space who will sell the movement for personal gain. But I assure you, what we are going through, there is nobody in Kenya who has ever gone through this process. In the sense that it is now the people of Kenya in their collective without a leader who are determining their future. And that future is premised on going forward. Our governance will be about us, not about the people we put in office. And anybody assuming that office, anybody who's going to be paid to betray this cause, I'm not cursing you, but I am promising you, you shall fail. And we will be here to witness the collapse of that enterprise. The third thing I want to point out, I've heard what Denoa said about Cyprian. I will not want that we spend too much time discussing personalities, but at least Denoa said he just want to put it out there so that we also do our own self-introspection. You may have had at some point in the past, but nothing stops you from picking up the piece and saying, for the common good, for the better of the entire movement and the people of Kenya. Because when Kenya is great, it's great for all of us. You are now going to have leave that past and focus on this movement that is going to achieve a unity and a new country that makes sense to all Kenyans. Kenya must now make sense to all of us. We've been living in a country where Kenya only makes sense to those who are holding public office. In fact, if you ask me, if you look at the salaries that public servants earn vis-a-vis what private sector offers, you ask yourself why somebody, for example, will leave his legal practice to go and earn a salary of 300,000 Kenya shillings. But then 6 months into office, this man is walking around with 10 million Kenya shillings watches. This man is negotiating in advance to buy land worth of 100 million Kenya shillings and saying, I will pay you. Even if he was to take a loan, if he was to appear in any bank with his payslip, no bank will give him that loan. It simply means that he knows leaving private practice to go into government service is now an opportunity for him to accumulate for himself. And we must reject that. And that is what we are rejecting on the streets. Let's go to tactic. You witnessed today when the concert was being held and the young people turned up in their numbers for that concert. There was no act of breach because you caught the politicians, I mean, the near doers, flat footed. They are used to the usual rigmarole that you go to the street and they send policemen, they throw tear gas at you, they baton beat you up, throw water cannons at you. But we must now have ingenious ways of organizing that we will create a national mood that even the police at some point will be the ones on the street demonstrating, not the people of Kenya. Because what we are saying and what they are being asked to do to us when we are out in those spaces, even them, they love self-introspection. And you will witness it. The police will put down their guns and they will say, no, these people are not fighting for themselves, they're actually fighting for the country. And as we are also part of that country, politicians cannot misuse our police force again. There's a point, Amerix, you raised, and I agree with it totally. We are going through the third and final liberation. And all Kenyans need to understand that. This is the third and final liberation, the economic liberation of man. We got our first liberation in 1963 when we attained independence. And that was purely a case of black people, Kenyans, electing their own to lead them. Then beyond that, we never got full political independence. And that is why the Matibas, the Rubias, Orengos, Railas, Muites went out to the streets to agitate for the repeal of Section 2A. They got those political rights, and I do believe, as guided by my party leader, that our political quest was settled in the year 2010 when we got our new constitution and we established the systems of government and we established even a Bill of Rights for the first time in our constitution. What we are going through now is there's been an attempt to claw back on those political rights. But those attempts, as you witnessed from even the Supreme Court decision in 2017 nullifying Uhuru Kenyatta's theft, and certain decisions that have come from the courts have been very progressive. But don't for a moment think that the judiciary as a whole is open to this. Of course, there are some elements in the judiciary who will still try to claw back and try to eat back on people's rights. You witnessed, for example, when we were doing the housing levy case last year, and Justice Tande very courageously issued an order to stop the collection of that levy. The Court of Appeal followed up, and even when they had the appeal, they said, no, this levy is illegal, you cannot collect it. But William Ruto and his people proceeded to collect the housing levy using what they were calling the Affordable Housing Act. Now, remember this. At the time when the levy was introduced in Parliament through the finance bill, there was no, and the court stopped it. They had collected money almost 6 months into the financial year. They retained that money. They should be returning that money to all Kenyans who paid it, so that even if their new act were to pass, the collections should be in the coming financial year, not backwards. And look at what they did to Justice Tande. Within 2 weeks of a decision, she was transferred to Malindi to become the judge there, removed from the Constitutional Division here in Nairobi. And they hope that they are going to get judges who will be acting as gatekeepers when action is brought against executive excesses. We cannot relent. We will follow all these judges and make sure that they live true to our constitution. The final point I want to make, Amerix, is this. No, maybe before the final one. Let me tie it to what you said. In this citizens' conversation, we must, at the point of electing a new leadership, make sure that we are also clear on the system of governance. Are we being undermined by the party system so that when people are elected, they are more beholden to their political party than to the people who elected them? Look at William Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza members of parliament. First, they go to parliament. Kenyans give them their views. 99% of the memorandum and the people appear before them tell them this finance bill is bad, reject it. They ignore. In fact, Kimani of Molo has the audacity to say we will not even touch that question of motor vehicle circulation tax. That thing must be in that bill. They proceed to pass it. Then, upon the people of Kenya putting pressure and William Ruto, even in people invading parliament, William Ruto decides to renege. Then he calls those members of parliament, and you see all of them clapping behind him, gleefully happy, and saying that that's a good decision he has made to reject. Why did we have to lose more than 39 Kenyans to get to that space? Anybody who is occupying a position of leadership, a position in trust, to whom at least 39 Kenyans must die before his wrong can be corrected, does not deserve to sit in any public office in this country. Those members of parliament are cast, and I cast them. And I say this, Kenyans must continue denying them audience in whatever space they appear, because they are no longer representing the collective will of the people who voted them. And I want to urge us, sometimes I see some of our compatriots attacking those who voted for Kenya Kwanza or those who voted for some of these MPs. The fact that somebody voted for Kenya Kwanza or an MP, don't take it that he is now beholden to that person. When somebody has withdrawn his vote, his support, we urge them to join the movement, because our enemy is not that person who voted. Maybe he was misled. He was lied to on election day. But now he has seen the folly of his ways and he has seen through. It's even encouraged that when somebody recalls his vote and says that this MP is no longer representing what I voted for, that is a person that becomes an ally, and you help him in his fight against his MP. So let's avoid cross-party or cross-voting attacks against each other. Our common enemy is William Ruto and Kenya Kwanza. Those are the people who have put us in this pain. The final point I want to make, and I hope my leader, Jimmy, I had Amerix, you try mentioning him if he could join. The question that we are facing as a country, which William Ruto and his people are trying to avoid dealing with, is the question of debt. These people took debt from the year 2014. Part of that debt didn't land in Kenya. I'll pick the Eurobonds, for example. They took 2 billion US dollars Eurobond. At that time, Jacob Juma, there's a gentleman, I think it's called Owiti, and even David Ndii was in that group. ODM convened them, and they went through to trace the movement of that money. And Raila at that point even threatened to lead Kenyans to storm Treasury building, to release where the money went. Upon that threat, Treasury released the first proof of payment. They released the RCGS form, which showed 1 billion US dollars was used to settle part of a loan that would be taken by Kibaki, and part of that money was paid into a CBK account. Correct, accounted for. The second part, 1 billion US dollars, at that time is almost 100 billion Kenya shillings. When they demanded for the information to be released, they released to a form. It's in the public domain to date. And that form shows money moving from JP Morgan to another bank, and the account to which it is going in Qatar is redacted. You cannot see the name of the person to whom that money is being made. That is 1 billion US dollars in your debt books. In other words, somebody went to America or to the European market and took a Eurobond of 2 billion US dollars in your name. He made you to be responsible for paying that debt. And he did not apply that money to any project in Kenya. He did not procure parliamentary approval for that money. But what the Kenyan people ended up with is a responsibility to pay for that money. We did pay for that money sometimes, I think it was in end of June. And at that time, now when we were paying for it, we refinanced it. We took a fresh one at an interest rate of 10.35%. At the time of taking in 2014, the interest rate was 6%. And there are so many other such loans which are taken in our name. If you go to our PFM Act, it is very clear. You can only borrow money for a project. You only borrow money for development. You are seeing Kenyan government every day issuing, every week they issue treasury bonds and bills. They're telling you this bond and bill is going to finance which project. You are just saying 20 billion floated. People take out that loan and they come back to you. When the bank takes these loans, they're using your money, using my money that I have deposited in the bank. Then they go to my government to take a treasury bill or bond that is not pegged on any project. Government takes it to eat it. Once they eat that money, the government comes to me and you and collects an exorbitant interest rate to pay for that loan. Now, interest rate is at 16%. When they take that interest rate of 16%, they do two things. Number one, you are burdened with a high interest rate that you're going to pay from your tax money. And number two, even if you wanted to do your own project as an individual, they know here wanted to go and expand his food business. He goes to the bank tells him, they know, I will only give you a loan at an interest rate of 22%. Why? Because the bank prefers to lend money to government because government will pay for that money and will come back to the people of Kenya as a sovereign to cushion it. They know it's seen as now a credit risk. In fact, you are not even wanted in that banking space. Now, many Kenyans cannot access capital because of government borrowing illegally in the domestic market, burdening Kenyans with high interest rates and denying them an opportunity to even borrow for their own private ventures. That is why you are not seeing any development. What today, as we speak, what is stimulating development in this country? If government is not doing any project, where's the flow of money? When I'm not putting up, expanding my law firm, or somebody is not expanding his business, where's the flow of money? Because I go to a bank to take a loan to put up a fish farm in Kisumu. That bank will tell me they want an interest rate of 20%, 25%. Why? Because government is borrowing at 16%, 17%. They rather lend to government. Now, I cannot access that credit. The government money that was borrowed was used to Fuliza, to eat. Was not used to build a road, to build a bridge, to build a dam. It was all eaten. So we must be very careful as a country and decide, number one, any money that has been borrowed in our names that was not done in a way that conforms with our laws, that money, we have no responsibility to pay for it. It is an odious debt. If we go that route, and I do remember when I was in Mozambique, when President Nyusi had just been elected, there was something that had been taken similar to our Eurobond. It was called tuna bond. Again, 2 billion US dollars that was taken in the name of the people of Mozambique. The money never came into Mozambique. They were only told to pay for it. So some public-spirited members of the public, civil society groups, went to court and they sued the Attorney General and their parliament. Their parliament was saying that tuna bond is legal. We must pay for it. The AG was saying that tuna bond must be paid for. But the people of Mozambique were saying, no. Where was parliamentary approval for tuna bond to be taken? Bring it to court, none existed. The court in Mozambique said that loan is illegal, it is odious, and the people of Mozambique will not have to pay for it. Do you know what happened? Credit Suisse collapsed. They had to pay that money. So even us, we must look into our debt books and say, anybody who took money in our name without following our laws, you took money that didn't apply to any project. It is not the responsibility of the people of Kenya to pay for that loan. We must unshackle ourselves from this yoke of oppression, both internationally and locally. Internationally, they are the Eurobonders, that is the Paris Club, the London Sovereign Group. Locally are the domestic banks. We must start asking them, when you are taking a loan from the Kenyan government, what is the project that that loan is funding, number one? Number two, where is the parliamentary approval for that loan that allows government to float a bond or a bill? You saw William Ruto last week on TV when he was saying, because you rejected the finance bill, I will now borrow 1 trillion Kenya shillings. I mean, how can someone casually commit the people of Kenya to take a loan of 1 trillion Kenya shillings? He's not even told you what loan, what project does he want to fund. He's not even told you where's the parliamentary approval, but he's telling you, I'm going to take a loan of 1 trillion Kenya shillings. You people of Kenya, you must pay for it. You must tell him, no, we are a country of the rule of law. The sovereign people of Kenya have even said in rejecting the finance bill, if you think that this country will only develop through loans, then suspend that development. We don't need it at this particular point because you are taking these loans and applying it to things that don't matter to the people. You are not building any new road. You are not building any new bridge. You are not building any new dam. So we must be able to call him to order. Another thing that I must mention, this space that we occupy, we must jealously guard it. When William Ruto came to space last week, he was not coming to space because he loves this space. No, he was coming here to take it over. They've been the kings of the streets because on the streets they are able to manipulate our young people. They are able to pay some people to disrupt, to control the political conversation. But on the social media, he does not have control over this particular platform. This is a citizen's platform, and this platform must be guarded and protected to posterity. Any politician who will come here or who will come into leadership in this country, even myself who has said I should be compared with Rigathi Gachagua, I believe I'm a better deputy president than him, if the time came. That politician must be told, you are not coming here to be our boss. You are coming into public space to be our servant, and you must be reporting back to the Kenyan people on space. You must hear that bullshit that they tell you every day. You must hear when they tell you fag off. You must hear it. You must respond to everything they're saying, whether you like it or not. I may not agree to the use of a particular type of language, but the Kenyan people who have put you in an office have a right to express themselves in the best way that they know how. If somebody's best way to express himself to say fuck off, then you must fuck off and listen to him. You must give him the respect to express himself, and you must do that which you believe is going to give him dignity when it comes to their governance. And finally, the point that you raised, Amerix, I say this. We must focus on the prize. The prize is a better governance. Kenya Kwanza may not give us that governance. And I urge our people, do not despair. When you see a regime using all the arsenals and all the tools that have been used before, just know that you're doing the right thing. They started with the police. The Kenyan people overwhelmed the police with love. They tried tear gas, they tried water cannons. It was overwhelming. They went for the army. You are told now the army is out on the streets. The Kenyan people are overwhelming the army with love. Because these are people who are just appearing with water bottles and flags, saying, we are fighting for a better Kenya. Now they've resorted to the last arsenal that's normally used by falling regimes, is to start getting goons to infiltrate, try to buy some of who are perceived to be the spear leaders or the ringleaders of the movement. People say that is not a leader, Ahmed is not a leader, Deno is not a leader, Wanyakuni is not a leader, Otero was not a leader. There is nobody who is leading this thing. So they are finding it difficult to infiltrate. They will take one today, Osama today, but tomorrow a new Osama is going to be born. You'll find another. In fact, you kill one Osama, you take one Osama, 100 Osamas appear immediately to fill that gap. So we must guard this space jealously. Don't even spend too much energy crying over the fallen soldiers who will have been bought by the regime. Our tears should only be reserved for those of our Kenyans who've been killed, the Rex, the Besleys, the Dr. Margarets, who've died when fighting for a better Kenya for all of us. So let us please focus and let us make sure that we do not relent. And to our members of parliament, some of them who may be on this platform, you must now understand one thing. Power is in the hands of the people. Don't vote as a robot, that something is brought before you and you just vote. Sometimes you may have made a mistake. And I always say, when somebody makes a mistake, I'll forgive you the first time. But your conduct post that mistake. If, for example, the conflict of interest bill that was passed by a Senate, if some members feel that they never fully understood it, nothing stops you from bringing an amendment bill or even introducing amendments that furthers the good of the people. Take it back to Senate. Let us stop spending too much energy explaining ourselves out there for action that you've done on the floor of the house and you're not correcting it. I, as a person, I have no faith at all in our parliament. In fact, where I sit, I believe when the Kenyan people occupied parliament, we were done with the parliament. And nothing will come out of that parliament that is for the benefit of the people of Kenya. We are done with it. Our next phase was to occupy State House, which William Ruto stopped by bringing the army and and goons to infiltrate. An occupation of State House does not in any way mean an insurgency or a coup. It simply means the Kenyan people want a civil conversation on the manner in which they are going to be led. And let us not, when people say, I'm going to occupy parliament, we must, or I'm going to occupy State House, we must be very careful not to start selling fear or encouraging the police or the army to use guns. When somebody says we are going to occupy parliament, what you should be doing is asking the police, asking the parliamentary leadership, can you make sufficient arrangements for the group that is coming, that there's security for the members, there's security for the protester, who has the right under Article 37 to protest. When he comes to parliament, he's given a chance, he's given an opportunity to express himself. If you are going to set the parameter to be the gates of parliament, set it to be the gates of parliament. If it's going to be the lawns of parliament, set it to be the lawns of parliament. But you cannot say, if you come to parliament, we will kill you. And to say this, for these policemen who are currently being misused by the political administration to cause these deaths, I've been in a case, the Baby Pendo case, and in that case, we are suing policemen. We are suing former commanders, OCSS in Kisumu, the ones who killed protesters. They even clobbered Baby Pendo, a 2-month-old baby in her coat, baby coat. They killed that baby. Today we are in court. I've looked at all those policemen in the eye. I've seen the fright in their faces. They are being charged for crimes against humanity. They are being charged under the International Crimes Act. And their charging has been approved by the DPP. Those people are now crying in the Constitutional Court, asking, pleading not to be allowed to take plea. So even to Komi, even to Bungei, when you are deploying police and you're encouraging the killing of Kenyans, please note, when the time comes for you to answer for that, William Ruto, Kimani Ichung'wah, Ndindi Nyoro, or whoever you think is now sending you to do these things or is protecting you will not be there. You will carry your cross alone. Yebei is in court crying today over Baby Pendo. He is facing his day to answer to those charges. And we must document all these atrocities. The beauty is that criminal law, there is no limitation of action. I can sue you today, I can sue you tomorrow, I can even sue you 10 years today, even 30 years today. I can even wait for you to retire before I take you to court. And you will be called to answer to these charges. So anybody who's listening to me, if you come across any police atrocity, any misconduct by a unit sent, just collect the evidence. They may have the gun today, they may have the power today, but tomorrow they will not be holding that office. They will be called to account. And we must use all avenues available. I know there's a team of Kenyans who've even thought of going to the ICC so that the states can open an inquiry into Kenya. Because what we witnessed This is not police controlling riots or demonstrations. This is a case where somebody has issued an order to the police to go out to civilian population and to exterminate them. When you have men wearing balaclavas and running around in a double cabin pickup, and they're covering their faces, carrying assault weapons. That is a death squad. That is no longer about controlling crowds. That's no longer about providing police. And those are issues that we must take up to either our local courts or even higher courts. And we must push to the end. We cannot at any point, even me if I fall down and die today, this movement that the people of Kenya have started is bigger than me. It is bigger than William Ruto. It is bigger than Gachagua. It is bigger than anybody who has occupied this political space or anybody who has ever represented the people of Kenya. We must now give the people the right to determine their destiny. And that opportunity is here. Thank you very much, Amerix and the host. Unless there's any question, I'll hand over back the mic. Thank you.
All right. I have learned a lot. Thank you very much, Wakili, for that. I want to bring in, Salasia.